Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stigma Stompers, NAMI Erie County, PA's one and only podcast. I am one of your hosts, Abby.
And I'm the other host, Heather.
Today we have with us Jack Martin, a very well-known funeral director here in Erie. He's with Duskus Martin. He has been practicing for over 50 years, full-time for 30, over 6,000 funerals under his belt. He's also been a school teacher, a coach, vice president of universities. He also dabbles in comedy. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things, mostly about grief. So let's go ahead and get into it. Jack, thank you very much.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. I think this is such an important, your organization is outstanding, and we need more organizations like this. I mean, dealing with, the different types of death. There's 4 different types of death. There's a natural, accidental suicide, and homicide, which I've dealt with and received my master's degree in grief counseling because I knew that was going to be important. But yeah, it's. I just want to thank you for having me.
All right, so, not everybody, that's not a job that everybody picks. I'm just wondering, was there a specific either experience or person who influenced your career path?
Yes. In college, if I would have known I was going to be a funeral director, I would have said you were crazy.
Yeah.
When I went to undergraduate, I was a psychology major. I minored in mathematics, and I really loved psychology. When I graduated from college, the first thing that I did is I received a contract to teach in the Mill Creek schools, and I taught for 12 years. But in the summertime, teachers either paint or mow lawns.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I worked at a funeral home, and my wife's uncle, Gus Duskus, started his first funeral home in 1946 in Wesleyville. And in the summertime, rather than mowing lawns or painting, I worked at the funeral home. Mm-hmm. And he was my biggest mentor and influencer. He taught me everything that I know. I did things I probably shouldn't have done because I wasn't licensed. I did enjoy it. After I was teaching for 12 years, I knew it was time. I wanted to change. I wanted to switch. And of course, he said, well, come into the funeral business full time. And I said, oh, boy, I don't know if I want to do this full time because I saw the hours that he put in. And, he used to have me go out on cemetery burials and be a mourner if there weren't enough people. And I dealt with the widows and the widowers. And I said, Gus, I just don't think I'm ready to go full time. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'd like to go into higher education. And so he paid for my doctorate. Wow. And I got my PhD at Akron. And that's how I became vice president of Gannon University in the early 90s. I did a lot of traveling, a lot of meeting of alumni, but still working at the funeral home, whenever I had an opportunity because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around the people. And then I went to Edinburgh, and then he had passed away, and his daughter Nancy, which I'm sure everybody in the community knows, Nancy Duskus. Nancy runs the other funeral homes in town, and she didn't know I had resigned from Edinburgh, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and she called me, and she said, no one in the family's getting in the business, you will go to mortuary school. So at age 40, I went to mortuary school in Pittsburgh. I was the oldest one in the class. They called me Dad, and it was a rough time though. I had 2 little sons, and my wife took care of them because I had to live down in Pittsburgh. Wow. But I enjoyed it tremendously. It was 2 years that my doctorate was reading and writing. Mortuary school was a lot of rote memorization. I could feel my brain waking up after all those years, and it was incredible. In fact, I took 4 students that were failing, and I told them, hey, you're going to flunk out. I mean, you guys are getting F, 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 F. And so I formed a study group, and I made them come to the apartment every single night. And we used 3x5 cards, and they go, Jack, we need a night off. And I said, I agree, So I said, all right, Thursday, because Friday we had lab, and it was restorative art, where you learn how to make noses and lips and ears and,
Wow.
To figure someone. The most important thing in funeral is to be able to have a family view their loved one because of closure.
Yeah.
And I actually have used a lot of restorative art. I have done ears and reconstructed complete faces so a family could view their loved one. And so then after graduating, I worked at Buffalo Road office for about 7 years, but always looking for, Nancy said, I said, I would really like a West Side location. And so after 7 years, we did find our location on Sterretania Road, which originally was built as a Kingdom Hall for Jehovah Witness. And then John Kansas bought it for Jet Radio. And when John passed away, and I did his funeral, he had the cancer machine. John he was a guinea pig on his machine. And I did his funeral, and then Rick Rambaldo bought the building, put all the radio stations in there, and it was too small a location. And so he moved all his radio stations down to the Boston store. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in that neighborhood there on Sterretania, and right across from Laurel Hill Cemetery, and I knew that was a perfect location for a funeral home.
Yeah.
So after some negotiating, I did acquire, actually there's 7 lots there. There's a tree areas of trees between Mill Creek Community Church and the funeral home. And we do share parking lots. And I put picnic tables in the woods, and families, when they come to a viewing, if they want to just go out and sit on the picnic table, the neighbors use it, to have picnics. So, yeah, I've calculated now, since I've been on my own, I've done well over 6,000 funerals.
Wow.
And it's hard for me to go to Wegmans because I'm bound to see somebody. And if I did a funeral 20 years ago, I have to pretend that I remember the person.
Yeah.
And people will turn around, they'll go the other way. I catch up to them. I go, why'd you run away from me, Jack? We love you, but we don't want to see you. And because when you tell
That
people
makes
that you're a
sense.
mortician, they ask a lot of questions because people don't really understand death. It's a subject people don't like to talk about. Now, if you're in jeopardy and you ever hear the question, the study of death and dying, it's thanatology is the correct answer. So if you're ever in jeopardy,
never
you may
heard of
get
that word,
thanatology.
so-
Yes.
all right, I'll save that up
Kubler-Ross,
here.
who did the 5 stages of grief, actually was a psychology major and majored in thanatology and death and dying. And that's what kind of led me, I don't know if you want to go into now, my work that I've done with students.
Yeah.
I was asked by the first one by McDowell out of the health curriculum to teach a course on death and dying. And I said, yeah, I would love to do that. And the students would actually come to the funeral home. For 16 years, I did this. And in the first few years, when school districts had money, they would drive. We aren't very far from McDowell. And every 2 hours, a different class would come out of the health class. And I would sit down. I would start with Neanderthal man all the way back. and the history of thanatology and how it evolved and how the funeral business evolved. My gift is working with my families. And I think that stems back from number one, teaching, also working at universities and being the MC of different events and talking and things like that, which really helped me. And also, I'm a people person. I always have been a people person, and I think the first couple of years when I was working with Gus and sitting down with families and learning the different, every case is different. Every single case is different. For instance, if you have grandma who's 98 years old,
Right.
that is going to be a complete different meeting with the family as a 6-year-old boy drowning in
Wow,
the
I can
swimming pool.
imagine. Yeah.
So I have to psych myself up. And I've learned throughout the years really how to start from the very beginning. You have to know what to say. Because a lot of times with accidents and suicide particularly, the families are in shock. Addiction, for instance. People lose their son and daughter, and one of the biggest problems is the blame. An addict can lie right to your face, and you believe them.
Yeah.
And you can put a son or daughter in rehab, and believe it or not, only a third actually are cured. Many get off, but then they go back to using. We've had many cases where the family, they just don't know what to do anymore, and they'll kick them right out of the house. And I've had some cases where the addict will go, for instance, to Florida or someplace, and then word gets back that they found their loved one with a hypodermic needle in their arm in a restroom.
Wow.
And particularly mothers, then there's so much guilt that they had kicked them out of the house and said, and I have to explain to them that, addiction is a disease.
Yeah.
It really is. And just like, and I try to tell them, you did everything that you could.
Yeah.
And mental health wise, there's always help for someone that needs help in mental health. And I tell people that there's always help. And I have worked tremendously in the field of suicides. And I try to reach out. And, most families that face a suicide in their family, number one, it was a complete surprise to them. They had no idea. And, there are warning signs. And people said, geez, I should have done something, or I should have sat down. And they said, I should have taken, every gun out of the house. If somebody's going to commit suicide, they're going to find a way to do it.
Right.
And I tell them it's not your fault. It really is not your fault. And if we can just reach people that have that feeling of suicide, with the hotlines. I know you have a hotline. There is a national hotline.
Yeah, 988.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the national hotline, 800-273-8255. Veterans, with post-traumatic stress disorder, we have seen a huge increase with veterans and suicide because of post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I call different hospitals, particularly if I have a death at the Veterans Hospital, the first thing on the menu is, if you're having a thought of suicide, please call this number. And I'm really happy that they do that.
Right.
When I was teaching Death and Dying in 2018, the opioid addiction went crazy. And we were seeing, 2 overdoses a week.
Wow.
Wow.
And when I was teaching the high school students, in 2018, I took my course Death and Dying and I split that in half. I did Death and Dying and then I did Addiction. And I explained what addiction was. A lot of times addiction could occur because of depression. And I tell them, your brain is an organ in your body, just like your heart. There's such a, what word do I want to use? Stigma against mental health.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, he's crazy, but I know firsthand about depression and anxiety attacks. In fact, I have depression, and I'll be honest. And I inherit it. It's genetic a lot of times because it has to do with chemical imbalance in your brain. And I do take medication for it. My dad had severe depression. My two brothers, of course, they didn't get it, but I got his genes. And so I think that kind of helps me work with, addicts. When I tell them that I experienced, depression. Same with addiction. I had two heroin support groups, and they were late teens and early 20s. And out of those two groups, I only lost one person. I did have one person who was clean, but they said they had to, they needed something. So I know at 3 a.m. I jumped in my car, reached the person in time, and we talked, and I feel, I saved him. And I love golf. And I had an idea with these groups, people they look up to. And sports figures were a big topic. And during COVID, what I did is I wrote letters to all the professional golfers because I knew they were going to be home during COVID. Yeah. And I said, listen, I'm not asking for money, but I'm explaining my program that I do with the students. They look up to you. If there's any word of advice or a letter you could write. And I did hear back from two professional golfers, Justin Thomas. So, of course, he's my favorite golfer because he responded back to me. And Adam Scott from Australia. I got this big package from Australia. So I showed those to the students, and they had pictures. They had signed autographs and things like that. So you have to kind of think beyond the box, and how you're going to
kind of meet them where they're at.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
You had talked about working with the families and how that's kind of your gift. So obviously because of your profession, you've seen people at the hardest moments of their lives. What has that taught you about grief, or what have you learned from it?
Yeah. Exactly, because you don't know, before you meet the family. Now, what I do is I go out and I meet them right at their car, and I walk them in because they want to be able to trust. And I introduce myself. Now I'm to the point where I'm doing many funerals for families that I've done other funerals for. I meet them at the door. They introduce me to the rest of the family. And then we go into the conference room. And the first thing I tell them is, I'm going to make this as easy as I can for you. I am here for you. I am the funeral director, so I'm going to direct the funeral. We have a beautiful aftercare program. We contact there's 50 items that we do for families.
Wow.
We contact Social Security, any pensions, life insurance. We even do car transfer titles. And people go,
wow.
It's just like a weight off their shoulder. You know, they go, oh, we've been worried about this already, you know. And I said, don't. You know, for the next week, you have to stay with your family. And it's so important, you know, that you embrace each other and just we want to celebrate your loved one's life. You know, we have to do something. And I don't want you to have to worry about anything else. And I'm going to do everything for you. Then I get a little background information. You know, well, how long has Mom been ill? You know, and a lot of times, oh, we've been taking care of Mom for so long. We've had hospice, which I love hospice. Yeah. I had hospice for my own mom when she passed away. So I just don't jump right into planning a funeral. I want to have conversation with the families. Yeah. And it all depends, like I said before, you know, there's 4 ways of dying. A natural death is old age or disease. Cancer is probably one of the top, and heart disease. We're seeing a lot of younger people with heart disease. I know I lost a nephew due to unexpected heart disease at age 33. So that's really, you know, something that I've experienced. So when I work with the family and I find out that they had someone young that passed away, I actually felt what they're feeling. Now, I have never experienced a suicide, so I can't tell a family, you know, I know what you're feeling. I don't. I have to get their feelings. I have to see, you know, my master's degree is in grief counseling. I have to see how they're taking it. Of course, the first few couple of days, they're in shock. And we always stay in touch with our families. You know, even, it's funny, I've done funerals for a widow who lost her husband 12 years ago, and they still call me on the phone. And it's funny because, oh, Jack, I got this in the mail. I don't know what it is. And can you come look at it? So I'll go to the house, and it'll be a yellow piece of paper that's so old. They just want me to come over and talk to them, you know, because they're lonely. Yeah. Families that have family support are so lucky. You know, I've done funerals for widows and widowers who have no family at all. So sad. Just recently, I had a widow. She said, Jack, I don't even know how to write a check. You know, my husband did everything. I don't know if he has life insurance. I don't know anything. And it's funny because I'll say, well, you bring in everything you can find. I had a lady about 6 months ago. She brought in a huge box. She said, these are all our papers. And it took me half a day to go through and see exactly what she had, you know, for aftercare. Our aftercare program is so important. But, of course, in the beginning, you know, we'll talk. The most important thing for a funeral director is to be able to have a viewing. Yeah. Times are changing. 15 years ago, Erie County, the cremation rate was 10%. It is now over 70%.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And people say, why?
That's interesting.
Why is it jumping up so high? You know, is it the cost? Well, it could be, but the major increase in cost would be the cemetery expenses. You know, because I try, if they want a direct cremation, which means we just pick up their loved one, do all the paperwork. There's just as much paperwork to do with somebody that's being cremated as a traditional funeral, where we're going to have the person laid out in a casket, you know, and have a funeral visitation, and then have a funeral service. There's just as much work. So I try, when people say, we just want a direct cremation, I try to instill in them, well, let's do some kind of a memorialization. You know, we don't have to have the body present. You know, we can have an urn. You can have pictures. Because I've had people that have done direct cremations, and they come back to me a year later, and they go, oh, Jack, we should have done something. You know, maybe the grandkids didn't have an opportunity to say goodbye.
Yeah.
So, I don't force anything on anybody, but I try to tell them how important it is for closure. Because I've seen some people that just, and there's a lot of misconceptions also. Some people think if they're going to be cremated, they can't be viewed, which is not the case. They just don't have to buy a casket. We have what we call a cremation casket.
Okay.
The body has to be embalmed, and so we can still have a viewing. So we go over what we have to do in terms of whatever they want, I will do, and I tell them that. I said, I will do anything that you want. I will try. If they want to do a funeral on a certain day, I'll try to make that happen. I mean, we do have 3 parlors. I really like it when the family has the whole funeral home to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a kids' room, which is so important. It's a beautiful room. I had a woman who had schizophrenia, and I knew the lady, and I said, she was an artist, and I said, I put stickers on the wall, Disney stickers, and it looked tacky, and I invited her in, and she said, I could do the 4 seasons, I could paint the 4 seasons, and she dragged it out for about almost 3 months just because I brought a mattress in. She had no place to stay.
Oh, wow.
So I gave her a mattress. But the detail and the beauty of it, people go, oh my goodness, what a beautiful room for the kids. I'm a firm believer that children should be part of a funeral, but don't have them sit in the parlor for hours at end.
Right.
Yeah, the kids' room for my grandmother's was so helpful. It gave us the break we needed.
Oh, exactly.
Because it's a long 3 days for everyone, but I think especially for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have special coloring books and things like that, little Teddy about funerals, if the kids don't really understand. It's funny because I don't, families say, Jack, should I allow my 8-year-old to see his grandfather? Right. Well, my first answer is, I think, they have to understand what happened, and there are things you should say and things you shouldn't say. You shouldn't say Grandpa's sleeping.
Right.
Because they're going to be afraid to go to bed because they don't know if they're going to end up
That's a good point.
This was sleeping,
I never would have thought about that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, a lot of them, of course, equate it with, Grandpa's up with the angels, and then they have a better understanding. What really tears me apart is when we have a young person, like a father, who gets killed in an automobile accident, and they have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. Those types of families I really have to work with. We have the Caring Place in town, which is great, which was started by Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Really?
Yes, he started it.
I didn't know that. I love the
that.
Caring Place, but I didn't know that. He's even from Pittsburgh.
I did know that. I
Oh,
didn't know
yeah.
that, though.
And it goes from newborns all the way up to age 18. I used to volunteer there. People go, newborns? Well, yeah. I've had funerals for mothers that have passed away during birth. And the baby lived, but the mother passed away.
Wow.
Well, they're going to give the baby a caretaker, but the baby knows it's not the real mother. So babies even have grief. They'll cry more. They won't eat as much until, they get used to the caretaker.
Yeah.
But I think the Caring Place, it's an opportunity for the kids to intermingle with other children that have lost loved ones. It's heart-wrenching, sometimes. And they don't really understand why it had to happen, which is part of the grief. Kubler-Ross had the 5 stages of grief. Denial. This couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Why did it happen? Why did Daddy have to drive that day? Or what happened? We had a case where another accidental death occurred. It could have been prevented, and it wasn't the young 20-year-old's fault. It was the fault of the company that he worked for. And the mother, she came in and she wanted to, a half a day, she wanted to stay. He was a handsome kid, nothing wrong with his features or his face or anything like that. And I let her stay in there almost the whole day. And she just wanted to be with him. And then she asked me if, she said, I want his casket closed. I mean, it could have been open. He looked fantastic. But I said, if that's your decision, that's what we're going to do. We'll close it. And I know she contacted me almost every other day. And I knew, even though I have a degree in grief counseling, I knew she needed more professional help. I mean, I am so busy doing other things. I can't really give all my time. I think the big thing with my degree in grief counseling is to know when somebody needs more professional help.
We were going to ask, actually, what are some signs that someone may need additional mental health support? While
Oh,
grieving?
exactly. Yeah. Well, of course, if they don't go, Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, anger, depression, they blame themselves. If they get stuck on one of them, and it's not necessarily they have to go through the stages numerically, and when I see someone that totally distance themselves, it's really hard when they have no family, because family support is so important.
Yeah.
You have to allow a person to grieve their way. And you can't just say, oh, you'll feel better in a little while. Everybody grieves differently. Signs would be isolation, where they don't want to do anything. They don't want to celebrate they don't want to celebrate holidays. I've had cases even where a widow will continue to set her deceased husband's place at the dinner table. And that was her way of doing it.
Yeah.
Cremation, we have our own crematory. I had a widow, she said, Jack, I really want my husband's cremains back at my house because I want him to be with me. And so I ran them over to the home. Well, it was the next morning, and she was in a panic, and she said, I am not ready for these cremains to be in my house. You have to come and take them back. And I said, of course. And that was her way of grieving. She knew that this was giving her stress, and that turned out well, though, because within a year, it took a year, she said, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. There's a lot of community support groups also. I'm happy to say probably 5 or 6 that I have sent to community support groups have found another spouse,
Wow.
a friend, where they needed companionship.
Wow.
On the other spectrum, I've had, you never say, oh, I'm going to write a book. I mean, with 6,000 funerals, people have gone up, hey, during the funeral, hey, I have a nice girl you should meet. You don't say that
Right.
at the funeral.
Yeah.
I mean, the person hasn't even, gone through grief yet.
Right.
We allow, Pennsylvania was the last state in the United States that allowed food in a funeral home. And I used to say, where am I supposed to eat? Out front. And by food, snacks.
Yeah.
The days of 2 to 5, 7 to 9, they're gone. People don't. I know when my grandfather passed away, when I was in high school, we had 3 days of visitation. And that's just too much on the family.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
We
that
had
is a lot.
We
So
had
what?
that for my grandmother. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what we do, if we have a traditional funeral where we have the body laid out, the family comes in an hour ahead of time just to be with their loved one. More and more people, I love memorializations. We give families big photo boards where they can make collages. I bought picture frames that they fit in. A lot of times video. If they give us photos, we'll make a DVD. Or if they have it on a thumb drive and we play it on our large screen television, we set the chairs up in a semicircle and the family sit down and they sit and they watch it. I had a young boy that was killed on a snowmobile. And that was his life. He loved snowmobiles. And the family asked Jack, can we bring a snowmobile into the parlor? So we brought the snowmobile, actually drove it into the parlor. Pets are so important. Can we put grandma's dog's cremains in her casket with her? Can we bury them with her? You get strange requests at times. I know I had a woman, you have to have, internally you have to have humor. I mean, I can't sit there and start laughing in front of a family. Of course, there are times, my wife Karen, she's the office manager, and people they'll come into the funeral home crying, they're upset, and then 45 minutes later after we're done, they come out of the conference room laughing. Karen goes, what did you do? And I said, I don't know. I just felt that there was a time that I could interject some kind of something to give them some relief. And I tell them funny stories. I know with the food, for instance, we have a room, people bring in, family will come in an hour ahead of time, usually like 2 o'clock, and then 3 until time of service. It's 7 if they're going to have a 7 o'clock funeral service at the funeral home. And then a lot of times we'll do the burial the next day, or we'll wait till the body's cremated, then we'll have the urn up front with photos. I had one instance where, I tell the family, you can bring snacks in. They'll bring cheese platters, submarine sandwiches cut. I'm the type of funeral director, I'm not a stiff stand at the door funeral director.
Yeah.
I intermingle with people in the parlor. And there's always somebody that I know, or a family member will come over, maybe a grandson, and he'll thank me and he'll have questions. And, I want to be able to answer those questions. Well, anyway, this is, it's not really funny, but the family, they had sandwiches. And I was walking around and I looked up at the casket and there was a lady eating a ham sandwich looking at the body. I said, now how am I going to approach this? I have never seen anybody chomping on a sandwich while they're looking at the body.
Yeah.
And I said, ma'am, you're getting
That's a choice.
You're getting crumbs in the casket. And I said, please, go back up into the room, where you're supposed to eat. And like I said, that's why I'm writing a book. I have experience. You name it, I've experienced it.
You've definitely go above and beyond for the family members, and you deal with huge, big emotions all the time. And thank you for sharing that you struggle with depression yourself. What are some things that you do for yourself to take care of your own mental health? Because that has to be tough.
No, it is tough. And I've had people tell me, Jack, you got to take time off.
Yeah.
You got to go on. My wife and I haven't been on a vacation since COVID. And even when we do get a chance to go, I love to hunt. That's one of my release. We have, I'm lucky enough to have a place outside of Corey. I don't use it enough. I should use it more often. I really work 7 days a week. I'm always at the office by 6:30 in the morning, and if we have a funeral that day in the evening, sometimes I don't get home till 9 at night, and that could be 7 days a week.
Wow.
And then depending on the family dynamics and There's times when I know I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
And I'll take a drive. I'm very religious. The Lord is very important to me. The Lord has actually saved me 3 times.
Wow.
I have seen the light 3 times. I've had terrible accidents. But there's times when I have to leave and just drive and cry.
Yeah.
If there was a terrible, such a sad story about something, I have to be strong for the family. There's no way you can sit there blubbering in front of the family. They're going to see, we have to trust this person.
Right.
So I'll go and take a drive, and I'll just, pray to God and tell him, I can't do this anymore, Lord. What am I going to do? You have to help me. You have to help me through this.
Yeah.
And people go, Jack, you know what? I have to leave it at the office. I have to leave it there. When I go home, I should be doing more work around the house, but I'm totally exhausted.
Oh, I can imagine.
And my wife said, you'll go home, you get in your big lazy boy, my Yorkie will jump up on my lap, and I'll watch some television, and I'll fall asleep by 9 o'clock. And I know the time is coming. I have 2 boys in the business who help me out a lot. I have part-timers that are excellent. I don't have an answering service. I don't believe in them because people want to talk to me. And so I have my cell phone with me 24 hours a day. It's next to my bed.
Wow.
And the phone will ring at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. And luckily, I have gentlemen who will go out on a removal, whether they have to go to a nursing home or to a private residence. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have families call me directly, before. They'll even call me and they'll go, Jack, I think Dad's deceased. What should I do?
Yeah.
And there's times when I've gone over to the house. Some people, they call 911. If they're under hospice care, the first person they call is the hospice nurse because they can declare death. If they aren't under hospice care, I don't want the family to have to think they have to call the coroner. I'll call the coroner, and then they'll have to go out to the house and just make sure that that they are deceased. In the olden days, the only way they could find out if somebody was deceased was if they held a mirror in front of their nose, and if there was steam on the mirror, they were still breathing.
I've heard that before.
Oh, yeah, I read a
interesting.
story.
Yeah.
They had a gentleman, he was on the embalming table 3 times, and then he woke up. Yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean, his
God.
body was slowed down so much.
Wow. Wow.
So, particularly women, if they're going to be cremated, they go, Jack, please make sure that I'm dead before you put me into the crematory. Believe it or not, I've read, people spend more money on pet funerals than they do on human funerals. And they
We
want
love our
their
pets.
Yeah, they want their pets to go with them.
Yeah.
I had a really freaky call one time, or not a call, but I had a really freaky ask of me. The woman said, I love my cat. My cat's my most important thing in my life. And when I pass away, I want my cat put down. Would you put it down? I go, no, I'm not going to put it down. I'm not going to chase it around. And I said, I'm all for it, if that's what you want to do. But I'm not going to do that. You'll have to find somebody else to put the cat down.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a bit much. But I guess if that's what you want, that's what you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so we're kind of closing things up a little bit here. What do you think working so closely with death has kind of taught you about living, about living your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I got in the funeral business, I was afraid of death. I would
That's
think,
interesting.
oh my goodness, I have all these friends. I knew there was life everlasting, but I said, I'm not going to be Jack Martin. It's not going to be, I have 2 grandkids I love dearly, I'm not going to be able to see them excel in sports, and I felt bad about that. I was afraid of dying, but since I've been doing this full time, I am not afraid to die. I'm not.
Yeah.
I have outlets, and one is comedy.
Yeah.
You have to have humor, and you really do. And other funeral directors, will tell jokes amongst ourselves. I had the opportunity to do stand-up comedy. I did it many times at Junior's Last Laugh. I would actually, people love stories. You can tell a joke, but I love telling stories, and I've told funeral stories, and people they see the humor in it, and in fact, I had a following. I did so many shows. I did the brewery tour of all the breweries, and I had a couple that would follow me around, and they said, "Jack, this show wasn't as good as your last show." And I go, "Oh, maybe I'm done. Maybe I shouldn't do this." But I've had professional comedians actually ask me to tour with them.
Wow.
And I would have loved to. I could have been on the Tonight Show, probably. I wish. But my wife didn't want me to tour, so I didn't. But, yeah, I have, I don't know, my family, I think it's from my mom, my younger brother, Bob, and we do have humor. And I'm really quick. I can come up with things. And people laugh, but that's a release for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Definitely.
And if somebody in the audience, I told an Alzheimer's joke, and I did explain to people, I've done so many Alzheimer's funerals, and I'm not picking on people that have Alzheimer's. But with humor, I told this one joke. And it was funnier than all heck, and the place, went crazy. Well, the gentleman came out and he goes, I loved your show, Jack, but I took offense to the Alzheimer's joke. I said, well, then you shouldn't come to a comedy club,
Yeah.
And I've even explained that I'm not picking on people, that had Alzheimer's jokes,
Yeah.
but people just have to. So that's a big outlet for me, is the comedy. I don't know. I asked myself, I don't know how much longer, I could do this. My boys will eventually take over, hopefully. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been, like I told you before, in high school or beginning of college, who would have thought I would have been a funeral director? Never in a million years.
Yeah.
But it was my mentor, Gus Duskus. In fact, my father-in-law, Dr. George Duskus, was an ear, nose, and throat doctor in town. Doc lived to be 100. And when I decided to go into the funeral business, he said, Jack, you gotta be married to this business. You know that.
Yeah.
He said, you gotta be married. Yeah, I could see Gus's two daughters, Nancy and Connie. They lived on top of the funeral home for years, So Gus was, he was a great guy. He could have been a country clubber, but he gave his money to churches, put new roofs on churches, and I try to do as much as I can whenever I can. But who knows how much until I know I'm burnt out now.
Yeah.
I am. I'm definitely burned out. But I had a young couple. They were in their early 40s. They were daredevils. They would rock mountain climb. They would hang glide. They would parachute. And they came in. They go, Jack, we want to prearrange and pay for our funeral. So they did. They prearranged their funeral. They paid for their funeral ahead of time, which is a good idea because it freezes the price of the funeral.
True.
And they go, but we have one thing. We want you to do our funerals. I go, now, wait a minute. You're 42. In fact, I'm going to be 73 tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Well, happy
And
birthday
I'm-
tomorrow.
And and let's add, you probably have another 40 years to live. Add 70 and 40. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to do your funeral unless they come up with a pill or something. You'll probably have one of my boys or something. But no, I really enjoy talking to you guys, and I hope I want people even to reach out to me if they're having a problem with someone with your organization's fantastic.
Thank you.
But I take calls if anybody, and every family is affected by addiction. They are. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Best friends of mine have lost kids because of addiction.
Yeah.
And I will take any call. If anyone has thoughts of suicide or addiction, you can call the funeral home at 814-838-7656. And everything's confidential. I've had students call me.
Wow.
And I've helped them out. And I think that's why, like I told you before, God saved me 3 times. And I think that's why he saved me, because I wasn't done with my ministry. But I just want to thank you guys, and I want to thank your organization so much, because mental health for so long has been overlooked.
Yeah.
In the early days, I used to put people in state institutions.
Yeah.
And did absolutely nothing. And but is that good?
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for joining us, and thank you everyone at home for watching. And like you said, if you ever need to reach out to him or us,
or even
can.
contact them, and they know how to get a hold of
And we
me.
know how to get a hold of
Yeah,
Jack.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed this, and you two are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, and thank you again for watching this episode of Stigma Stompers.
If you'd like more information about NAMI, you can check us out on our website, NAMIErie.org, and you can also check us out on our socials. Facebook, we have an Instagram, and we also have a LinkedIn.
And while you're on our website, you should go ahead and check out our t-shirt store. We get a portion of all the proceeds. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.